Okay, I'm going to be brave today. I'm going to see how honest I can be on camera. And somebody close to me said, "Who are you talking to?" When I make these videos, my name is Shannon Nicole Kringen, and it is May 15th, 2025. And I'm going to just do a as long as I want monologue talking about whatever I want because I have freedom and I'm an individual human, and my pronouns are individual human named Shannon Nicole Kringen, uh, who thinks of every other person as a unique individual, whether they like it or not. I still think of you as an individual. Whoever's listening to this, I think of you, if I meet you, I will think of you as an individual, even if you tell me that your pronouns are she, they, non-binary, gay, trans, bi, heterosexual, Caucasian, um, whatever all the different ethnicities are. I still, whatever category you fit into, you can put a barcode on your forehead and put a QR code on your forehead, and I can scan you and I can, you know, list off all of your data and your label, and yet I still will think of you as a unique individual that is way, way, way beyond just whatever categories you fit into. So I'm frustrated by how complicated we're making it. I do believe in showing everybody love and respect and equality. And I also believe in interpreting people as unique individuals instead of just categories and descriptions. And then if you say that, you're accused of not caring about how prejudiced everybody is. And the irony of that is that part of why people are so prejudiced is because they're so obsessed with labeling everything and arguing about who is this and what is that and who is right and who is wrong and who is better and who is worse and how do we have equality and should we have equality and all this kind of just basic human decency and ethics are that everybody is valuable and everybody is a unique individual. And that's the way I see it. And I see people way beyond whatever their category is on the surface. So I find that frustrating and it's starting to feel really creepy, like everybody's turning into an atheist in a creepy way. And when I say that I'm not religious, see, so I'm always in between the extremes. I'm not conservative, but I'm not like 100% liberal to the point where I think every liberal idea is wonderful. But then I don't agree with any extreme conservative ideas. And yet I believe in being pragmatic and compromising and having some kind of human common decency and building bridges with people instead of walls. And I'm taking a stand-up comedy class, and I'm the only child of parents who split when I was 4. One of my stand-up comedy jokes actually is, you know how only children or children of divorce, sometimes they say we blame ourselves for our parents getting divorced, and we think if we were a more perfect daughter, if I was a more perfect daughter, my parents would have never gotten divorced. Actually, I think I should have never been born. My parents only got married because of me. So I blame myself for my parents getting married, you know? I mean, it could be that they would have, no, I don't think so. I think that they would have just broken up if they hadn't had me, but I don't really know. But I blame, yeah. And there's part of me when I'm angry, I feel like, well, they should have given me up for adoption or they should have, like, not had me in the first place. Um, and then I feel guilty for saying that because my parents, I mean no disrespect to them, but I don't want to box my feelings up. And I've already been into therapy for off and on for 30 years, and I wonder if I'm ever going to heal from any of this. Like the rules are reversed. Like, okay, my parents are good people, but I always felt like as a little kid that my job was to help my parents fix their love lives and fix their careers. I thought as a little kid my mommy and daddy needed to, be happy in their love lives and find a new girlfriend and find a new boyfriend because they weren't, they didn't want to be with each other, my mom and dad, who gave birth to me. So I thought my job as a little kid was to help them fix their problems, their careers. I wanted each of them to be happy in their careers. And I wanted them to each be happy in their love lives. And my whole childhood, I knew too much about my parents' adult problems. And I don't know how much of this was that my parents were inappropriate with their boundaries with me and they confided in me about their challenges because I was a very nice little daughter. I was, a sensitive, empathetic human. And I was kind and I appreciated them and had empathy for them and compassion for them. But they also confided in me a little too much, and maybe they could have had people their own age that they could have confided in because they obviously needed support. And everybody, especially if you're highly sensitive, both of my parents are highly sensitive. My dad writes his own comedy and his own folk music, and he's an amazing athlete. And so I grew up hoping that he would learn how to professionally do his comedy and or his music, and he was a professional tennis teacher and he almost went pro competing in tennis. He almost got to play Jimmy Connors in the 70s. So just to give you an idea that my dad is a very, very talented athlete and tennis player, and to this day, he is still very athletic and very talented, and he doesn't want me to talk about him, and my mom doesn't want me to talk about her. And then I think, okay, well, I better not talk about my mom or my dad. But then that's where I come from. And if I only talk about myself, then everyone thinks I'm a narcissist. And it's like part of why I mostly talk about myself is because I don't have brothers, I don't have sisters. I'm probably on the autism spectrum, like they told me I was. And because my parents are both very private people and they don't want to be on camera. So, I mean, literally, my parents do not even want me to photograph them. Or be in a photograph with me. I know they love me, but they don't like being photographed and they don't like being even just my own snapshot, for my own private collection. They don't even like being photographed for that. They're not casual like that. They're not, some families love to, like I've seen some parents like to pose in photos with their kids and put it on social media and share it with people. I don't have those kind of parents. So it's funny that Goddess Kring, who was famous for taking 9,000 self-portraits and putting them on Flickr, and I did a public access TV show for 15 years where I did, video monologues and sort of a video diary mixed in with poetry and show and tell of my art and talk about my personal problems, which is a bit inappropriate, you could say. You could say that maybe we live in a society where it's sad that we think it's wrong and bad for people to be honest. I mean, people need to be polite and politically correct. People need to not really say what they really think and just pretend like they think something else that's, that makes other people feel comfortable. I mean, I do believe in common human decency and being polite, but I don't know if we have to be as fake as we are, especially now when our medical system has been hijacked by large companies that only care about making money. And the more patients. And then hospitals feed people junk food, and it's comfort food, because if you're in the hospital, you need comfort food. That really makes me angry, that they don't give people healthy food in a hospital to help them heal. So I digress. My opinions about nutrition are controversial, and yet they make common sense to me. My opinions about being honest make sense to me, and yet they're controversial. So I have a couple friends of mine who are regurgitating sound bites from the mainstream news that are very sensationalistic, fear-mongering, angry statements that are based on triggering fear in people and trying to basically do a smear campaign against certain famous people and discredit when the media is heavily, heavily, heavily saying negative things about a famous person. You need to ask yourself, either it is true and this person needs to be held accountable, or this person is actually pointing something out that the powers that be do not want to be in the spotlight. So they need to convince the public to not trust this person and discredit this person. So I would say it's good to discern the difference. And these days, it's hard to tell if is there a smear campaign against somebody to discredit them for nefarious reasons, or is this person legitimately unethical and needs to be held accountable? Or is the media manipulating the public into thinking certain things? And I'm intentionally being vague because I don't want to tell you what I think you should think. I don't want to. I'm tired of people telling each other what they're supposed to think and how they can prove that they're a good person by having certain opinions. And there's too many people online that are policing each other's thoughts, and it makes me very uncomfortable. And two friends of mine, they're sort of acquaintances that I don't know very well, these two men that I'm friends with sort of online, and I have met them both in person as well. They both said, actually three different men that don't know each other that I know, and I know them in person and online. All three of them regurgitated a soundbite from the media. And I don't know if they realize, I think some people watch the mainstream news and they think when they regurgitate and parrot something, just like you're a parakeet and you're, or a parrot, whatever those birds are called that imitate people, word for word, they say a certain soundbite as if it's like a slogan. Like after 9/11, they were like shock and awe, war on terror, shock and awe, war on terror. It's like there's other sound bites nowadays that I won't mention that we're being told repetitive words over and over and over. And they say, when you tell somebody something over and over and over, you're basically gaslighting them. If the thing that you're saying isn't true, if you say it enough times, people start thinking it's true. To some extent, that's how human psychology works. And also, people don't want to be ostracized, including me. I don't want to be ostracized. So I'm walking on eggshells around certain people, and it's extremely uncomfortable. And I've had some experiences lately where I've gone out and done social things, and I'm really happy involving my art, but I feel really, really, really irritated by the loud noise. And sometimes when I'm in social groups, there's this whole buddy system that people like, and I tend to like to do things more independently on my own. So this is the part of my personality that's challenging. I'm conflicted. Part of me is lonely, and yet part of me wants more affection in my life and more companionship in my life, and yet I like my space. So for me to honor myself and to grow up, because I'm 56 years old and I'm very self-aware and I've been in therapy off and on for 30 years. So there's probably nothing a therapist would say to me that I haven't already heard and that I'm not, and that I'm smart enough to be pretty self-aware and pretty much know that there's all kinds of gaslighting and shadow projection going on, both on the political scene and the mass media scene, but also in my own personal life, my personal social life. I have a few friends I can be fully honest with, and whether they agree with me or not, they will respect my differences. And then there's a couple friends that really do agree with me on most things. But I get along so well with them that even if we disagree, we're respectful about it and we go, oh, that's interesting. I don't see it that way. I see it this way. Because sometimes when you tell somebody that you see something a certain way, they assume that you're trying to get them to change their mind instead of, how about I'm just saying, hey, I see it this way. And then the other person can say, hey, I see it this way. And we don't have to tell each other that one of us is wrong and one of us is right. We could acknowledge maybe both of us are right or maybe both of us are wrong. Who knows? How do we know? How do we know? With all of the technology these days, it's pretty easy with literally smoke and mirrors to fool people into thinking certain things are happening when they're not, and vice versa. You can hide things that are really happening and cover them up. You can also over amplify something that's really happening, but over amplify it or take it out of context. I was interviewed by the news media and they took what I said and they flipped it 180 degrees because they edited out what I said before and after. And I said one sentence that said one thing, but before and after I sandwiched it with something else. Of course, they edited out those two things for their agenda and they just put the soundbite in where I said one thing that made the public think that my opinion was the opposite of what it actually was. So I'm just using myself as an example, let alone what some of the famous people in the news media are saying and not saying. I know very well that they can take things out of context. Nowadays, we can actually imitate each other's voices with fake technology or with real technology that can mimic and simulate somebody's real voice and that's really disturbing because you can basically fool people. And then you wonder what's true and what's false, which leads people into being stressed out and at war with each other, which leads people into wanting somebody to rescue them and save them, which leads us into totalitarianism and how some people actually are going to want totalitarianism to feel safe. So I can't do that. I can't go along with that. I don't feel safe when I feel like I'm being lied to and manipulated. And I don't feel safe trying to be friends with people that I feel like I have to have a poker face and walk on eggshells with. And I don't have the guts and I don't want to be canceled, so I'm not going to say the specifics. And then people say, oh, you're so wishy-washy for not saying the specifics. It's like a setup. It's like if I say what I really think about some things, people are going to think I'm wrong. Some people are going to agree with me, and other people are going to think I'm wrong. People make of each other, people criticize each other, people belittle each other. Also, sometimes people cheer other people on and they get overly cheerleader-ish with people to the point where they want to promote ideas and maybe they get a little too gung-ho on that direction and then they totally invalidate and ignore people who have a different opinion, which I also think isn't good. So how do I fit into this world? I'm trying to figure out if I can ever heal from the feelings I have. I have tremendous feelings of fear of scarcity. I have a tremendous fear of scarcity because I was invalidated as a child. I call my childhood checkerboard childhood. I actually did stand-up comedy class the other night and I was so excited. I was going to do a video about the comedy and tell you all my comedy ideas. I'm going to do that in a future video. Yesterday, I was in a really lighthearted mood and I was like joking around and writing down all my comedy ideas. And I actually had a really fun time because my checkerboard childhood, when I say checkerboard childhood in the wild livelihood, I mean that my childhood was dark and light. You know how checkerboards are dark and light. I went back and forth as an only child between my mom and then my dad and then my mom and then my dad and then my mom and then my dad and my mom and my dad and my mom and my dad. And my parents are very different from each other. And they have a different way of doing things. I felt like I was one Shannon around my mom and I was a different Shannon around my dad. And yet maybe I was a third Shannon when I was by myself in my bedroom. I feel like I was more my real self when I was alone, actually. And I don't know if that's because I'm autistic or because I'm an only child or because I'm left-handed, introvert, or because I'm autistic, who knows? Or because I was neglected. I was a bit neglected as a child. And when I say that, I'm not saying my parents are bad people. I'm saying that they were distracted. They didn't give me the kind of attention I wanted. And also, I was kind of shy and introverted and sensitive. And I could sense that my parents were overwhelmed and they needed to focus on themselves. And so I think I pulled back and I held back and I thought, well, maybe when they grow up, maybe when they figure out their love lives and their careers, then maybe they can focus on me. And so as a little kid, I thought maybe if my dad figures out his career and love life and my mom figures out her career and her love life, then they can focus on Shannon and help raise me and help me pursue my dreams. But that never happened. And I'm 56 and it's still not happening. And in fact, now my parents are getting into their older years and I'm going to have to start helping them maybe in some ways. One of my parents actually needs my financial help, which is very, 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 very guilt. I feel very guilty because part of me is angry with this person and I don't want to help them. And yet I'm a workaholic. And part of why I'm a workaholic is because I have a fear of scarcity, because I was raised by one parent who was really good with money and practical about it and very frugal and very cautious and always figured out how to make money. And one parent who had a hard time earning enough money and was dependent on other people to help survive. And I feel jealous, envious and jealous of people who have parents who are still together or parents who maybe they're divorced. I know somebody actually who's divorced and is raising a kid with somebody, and they were married and they got divorced and they're raising a kid and they're doing it in a really nice way. The kid goes back and forth between each parent, but the parents are friends with each other and the parents don't fight and the parents have different ways of doing things, which is probably challenging for the kid to go, Mom does it this way, Dad does it this way, back and forth, back and forth. But then again, kids like that are exposed to many different things. If you're just raised by two parents that are together, you only learn certain things. But if you're raised by two different parents who have two different ways of doing things, the upside of that is that you're a more dynamic person that's more adaptable and flexible, perhaps, and you see things from different perspectives. And maybe you have a wider range of skills, actually. That's the upside. I'm seeing somebody be raised in a way that I wish that I was raised, which is the parents don't badmouth each other and because I knew too much as a little kid. I knew what my mom and dad didn't like about each other and I thought, uh-oh, where do I fit into this? Who am I? So as a form of self-esteem and self-respect and self-validation, I am making this video to just express some of my feelings about the challenge of being the daughter, the only child daughter of these two people who split up when I was 4. And I went back and forth between the both of them. And I knew too much about their adult problems. When I was a little kid, I knew way too much about the adult problems that each of my parents had. And it was partly because I was such a nice, empathetic kid, but it was also because my parents perhaps didn't have appropriate boundaries with me because they were confiding in me about their challenges. And maybe they needed to reach out to adults or to a therapist. Maybe it would have been better if they had worked more with a peer on these issues. And so as a little kid, I felt like it was my job to help them fix their problems. And I was worried about their problems. And I was hoping that they could improve their situations separately. And then they could focus on me. And I know this and I'm aware of this. And I've talked to therapists about, I already know this. And it's like, there's no therapist that's going to tell me, something I don't, well, maybe if they're a genius therapist, maybe I've never worked with a genius, but I've done enough therapy to the point where I know this. I know there's gaslighting, there's invalidation, there's shadow projection, there's, people in a family who accuse other people of being narcissists or sometimes narcissists themselves. And yet everybody throws labels on each other like you're a narcissist and you're this and you're that. And it's like, well, maybe we're just being not nurturing to each other. And we are so wounded within ourselves. We are so Maybe when somebody comes off as a selfish narcissist, what they really are is an insecure person that's extremely wounded, that is just trying to survive and has a defense mechanism. I know that's part of what that is. I think there's two kinds of narcissism. There's people who truly think they're superior to other people and they don't have a lot of empathy for other people. And then there's people that are really wounded and insecure, and they're just trying to puff themselves up to make themselves feel better, and they feel very competitive with other people. I sometimes feel very competitive with other people, and I feel kind of misunderstood and like I'm trying to figure out where I belong. I take really, really, really good photos when I'm by myself, but when I'm around other people, they distract me, and I'm constantly taking selfies and people are always saying, "Hey, would you like me to take a picture of you?" And I'm like, "No, I want to do a selfie." So sometimes I want to be polite. So I go, "Okay." And then they take they take a picture of me that I couldn't take myself, which is nice, but that's not what I want. I don't want a snapshot that somebody else takes of me. I am making art. So next time when somebody says that, I'll say, well, I like to do my own art photos. Thank you very much. You can take a snapshot of me. That's nice of you. But really, what I'm doing is doing my art right now with myself that I enjoy. So I feel misunderstood, but maybe I could stand up for myself and be polite. I did my stand-up comedy class and I really liked it. I was scared. I went last. There was 5 of us in the class. Each of us did a minute of comedy. And I was the last one. And I was really nervous and I was like, oh my God, I'm freaked out. Hi, I'm Shannon. And then I did my comedy bits. And then I was laughing at myself for being afraid and insecure. And then I was laughing and telling the audience, the 5 or 6 people in the, wait, yeah, there's 4 other people in the class plus the instructor, so that's 5 people in the audience. And I was looking at each of them and here's my eyes. I was making eye contact with each of them. My eyes are greenish grayish, bluish hazel, by the way. Um, I was making eye contact with everybody that was in the audience, and I was like, I have a hard time making eye contact, so I'm practicing on you guys. And then I was looking at each person, and then I was started laughing, and then they started laughing, and they said that my laughs were contagious. And that one lady in the audience in my class was giving me constructive criticism. She was saying that, yeah, you could work on your jokes and like, polish them a bit. But she said that you actually seem really comfortable on stage. Even though you're nervous, you look like you're having fun and you're laughing. And I believe you're genuinely making yourself crack up, which is making me crack up. And she said that my humor was contagious in a good way and that my stage persona was unique and interesting and that she appreciated my goofy personality. She didn't say the word goofy, but I think I'm goofy. But and then I said that two of my biggest influences are Shirley Temple and Mick Jagger. And the audience thought that was funny because Shirley Temple and Mick Jagger are, two very different people. Um, so there, Shazam. So earlier today, I called the crisis line twice. Once because I was really stressed out and I felt like I needed an objective stranger to talk to about my boundaries I have with each of my parents. And then I started crying and I was angry and crying. And then I called them again. And some people will hold this against me that I'm saying this, but because I don't have a regular therapist right now, I lost touch with I won't mention the name of the clinic, but their name is ironic because their name implies that they're very cohesive and put together. And this clinic seems to have fallen apart. At least last time I tried to hook up with a therapist, or I shouldn't say hook up, but get connected with a therapist who I could see every week and talk about my healing and growing and evolving past my childhood wounds, or whatever you want to call it, my inner child wounds, whatever you want to call it. One of my relatives recently said to me, "Why do you want so much attention? Why do you want so much attention? Why do you want so much attention?" Like, that's kind of an angry thing to say, don't you think? And then there's a relative of mine that needs financial help, and it's making me feel guilty and ashamed, and it's feeding into my codependent workaholism, which is I don't drink or smoke or do drugs. I'm not addicted to anything like that, although maybe a little bit addicted to sugar, but generally and some caffeine. I have coffee, iced coffee every day, but I don't really smoke or drink or do drugs. But I'm addicted to working, meaning I really love, I bend over backwards. In fact, today somebody I worked with said, "We love booking you, Shannon, because you're one of our most dependable, reliable people who's willing to just step up to the challenge and come here and do a good job." And I thought, okay, that's a compliment, but the dark side of that, the dark side is that I'm over accommodating. The dark side is that I abandon myself. One of my poems is self-abandonment got me stranded again, polluted and uprooted. I'll say that one more time. Self-abandonment got me stranded again, polluted and uprooted. So that means that when I abandon myself, I don't feel safe. Polluted and uprooted means that other people are invading my boundaries. I am having weak boundaries with other people. So, in other words, I will drop everything about my personal life if somebody wants to hire me. I will cancel plans. I will cancel plans with family and friends because I'd rather make money than hang out with family and friends because I feel, honestly, because I feel more safe when I earn money. It's a practical thing because I'm a full-time freelance person. It's practical, but it's also I feel like I have higher self-esteem when I work for people on a professional level and I earn money. I feel a sense of pride and a sense of I'm doing a good job and I know it, and they're paying me. It's both. It's the role that I'm playing as a worker, and it's also that I'm earning money, and it's a practical choice because my parents both taught me. One of my parents is always financially struggling. And the scarcity of that really stresses me out. And the other parent always has money, but is very frugal and a little stingy and cautious and a little judgmental about other people who are bad with money. So having those kinds of parents that both my parents deal with money in a very different way, and both of them have very different realities with money. One is doing well, one is not doing well. One of them is good at saving, one of them is good at spending. Let's just say that so I feel like my mission is to be independent, be independent, be independent. Don't trust other people. But of course, my parent didn't say don't trust other people, but this drilling into my head, if one parent is always needing more money, the other parent is saying be independent, be independent, be independent. Don't be like other people that are needy. Don't be needy. Don't be a gold digger, stuff like that. It's like, okay, have a good work ethic. So I feel like I'm trying to prove something when I over accommodate and I work for people. Maybe I'm trying to prove my worth. Maybe it's true. I'm very insecure and I have a fear of scarcity because I grew up in a very, 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 very stressful situation. I'm so angry and I feel so guilty and ashamed for even being born. And I feel like judgmental about because I feel sad for my parents. I know what their wounds are. I know that my grandparents didn't know how to nurture. My mom and dad both did not get nurturing from their parents. And I mean no disrespect. I'm saying this because I think I admire people who write books about their family trauma, not as a way of embarrassing or discrediting or disrespecting people in their family, but as a way of empowering people to heal and acknowledge. I don't think we should deny that families have these issues. I think that people should step up to the plate and have the guts and have the courage to say, I was neglected as a child. I was neglected as a child. I was invalidated as a child. I felt left out and excluded at school in my social group. I also felt left out and excluded in my home life. In some ways, both my parents were amazing people. A lot of my kid friends said that my parents were the coolest parents on the block. And in some ways, they were. In some ways, my parents are super cool. They're intelligent. They're sensitive. They're thoughtful. They care about animals. They care about having empathy for other people that are different than them. They help people less fortunate in some ways. They're thoughtful. I mean, my mother is very intellectually intelligent and sensitive, and she studies Advaita Vedanta non-duality, non-dualism, and Krishnamurti and questioning people who conform and march to the meat grinder and do the pecking order. She's very much aware of her thoughts and feelings and she's very intelligent and she does very unique artwork that I'm not allowed to share my mom's artwork with you because she wants to keep her boundaries separate from mine, which is totally fine. I think that actually is appropriate, but it's kind of hurts my feelings that she's embarrassed for people to know that she's my mother and I'm her daughter. In case they don't like my art, they might not like her art. Sadly, it doesn't occur to my mom that maybe people who like me will also appreciate her, but she doesn't want to ride on my coattails. So it's kind of like there's no collaboration there. It's a competition. It's completely separate. I don't know. It's just so my mom did the art thing and the philosophical Advaita Vedanta non-duality thing. My dad wrote comedy and folk music, and he's an amazing tennis player, and he's currently a personal fitness coach. And I'm not supposed to say any of that. I'm not supposed to say any of that. And it's like, I want to write a book about my childhood, checkerboard childhood. And what I meant was both my parents are very intelligent, sensitive, thoughtful, gifted people, both very talented, and yet they both didn't give me what I needed. So the dark side was that they invalidated and were just stressed out trying to solve their own problems. Maybe they should have given me up for adoption. I know they both love me, but maybe they should have given me up for adoption. I don't know. Like, seriously, I'm not joking about when I say that. Of course, if I was an adopted kid, I would be wondering who my birth parents were, of course. Um, Maybe an open adoption so that other people could raise me who really, really, really wanted a daughter who could just pamper me with affection and love. And I don't mean be like a spoiled brat only. I'm not a spoiled brat only child, that's for sure. Like there's a joke about only children getting all the attention. Well, if your parents are distracted and they need attention, they're not going to shower you with love and affection and attention. No, that's not my story. I did not get pampered and showered and loved with affection. Like my parents both loved me and they were both nice to me. Like my other kid friends, really, they did think my parents were the coolest because my parents would they gave me a lot of freedom. They would let me stay up late. They would let me eat junk food. They treated me like an intelligent person who could create art, and they didn't talk down to me as a kid. But if anything, though, that's the thing. My parents treated me like I was an intelligent miniature adult. So in a way, on one side, they treated me like I was intelligent and they respected my intelligence as a young child and they knew I was smart, but maybe they overestimated my maturity because they told me too much adult stuff that I didn't fully understand or I couldn't really handle knowing. That's the dark side of it. The light side of it is that they treated me with respect and they didn't talk down to me. Some adults talk down to their kids as if their kids aren't smart. And I'm like, I don't think people should do that. I think you should treat a kid like respect their intelligence. They're very young and they're still learning, but they're a lot of times kids are extremely wise beyond their years, and they just blurt something out that's amazing. And you're like, wow, my 6-year-old kid said this amazing thing that's extremely wise and interesting and creative. And so both my parents, so when I say checkerboard childhood, the dark and light is that I went back and forth between the mom and the dad, and that was hard because they're both so different, and I had to adjust and switch gears. But also, my mom has a dark side and a light side that's pretty strong, both. And my dad has a strong dark and light side as well. My dad is not very macho, but he's very passive aggressive. He said things to me that were sarcastic and that I didn't even understand. And he was just joking around. He was just joking around, but it had ramifications because it made me analyze and worry and think and kind of be hyper vigilant about trying to understand. And I think he said things that confused me. And then I was like, what does he mean by that? Like he's doing this, he's joking around with me like I'm an adult. And I'm not an adult. And he's joking around about men and women and dating and the games that men and women play with each other and sort of venting about his frustration in his love life and sort of telling me about um musicians who are overrated and underrated, and just basically criticizing and analyzing and philosophizing about his philosophy. And it just to the point where it overshadowed me. I felt like there wasn't enough space for me. That's the thing about with my dad. I feel like I don't get enough attention. And at the same time, I feel invaded. And I know there is a book, well, I won't even mention the book, but there's a book about boundaries. There's a book about how you could be inappropriate with kids, not just on a physical level. There could be just some kind of emotional level. So I think that I was not physically harmed, but psychologically, some of the adults said things to me that I shouldn't have known. Like as a little kid, it's too much for a little kid to know too much about the adult problems going on in the household. And so I was really worried and stressed. And so both my parents didn't have strong enough boundaries. And yet I was hungry for attention and hungry for a certain kind of validation and attention and nurturing and focus. And I wanted a mentor. I wanted to be mentored. I found mentors in high school and junior high, and some of my teachers were mentors for me and encouraged me to write. I wrote essays and got A's, and I was good at writing essays, and I was good at doing certain things. And my parents did help me do my homework sometimes. They made sure that I did my homework, and they did good things like that. But there was just something, how some parents think their kid is great and they think everything their kid does is great? My parents are the opposite. My parents are critical. So my parents, they think I have potential. Both my parents think that I'm very intelligent, but they kind of always had a way of sort of, oh, that's great, and then they would criticize it. Oh, that's great, and then they would criticize it. And it's kind of like, you need to do better. 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 But then both my parents criticized successful people. My mom said people were on an ego trip and a power trip, full of their own ego and kind of greedy or something. My dad would say somebody is overrated or underrated, or it's all just because they're good looking. Oh, they're not talented, they're just good looking. And then there's this person that isn't good looking. There's ugly person over here with a lot of talent, but since they're not good looking, they're not going to be successful. And it's like, oh my God. So you had all these like excuses why somebody can or can't be successful. So I remember I developed all these complexes about how does somebody be successful? And then I felt ashamed of my desire to be successful. To this day, I feel like it's greedy and I'm ashamed of my beauty, ashamed of my talent, ashamed of my desire to be successful because I'm afraid, oh, that means I'm an egomaniac. Oh, that means I'm a jerk. Oh, that means and then I get jealous of other people. I can see why I'm so envious and jealous of other people who are allowing themselves to succeed. And I also know it's okay to fail. Like, if anything, I'm more comfortable failing and embarrassing myself because I've already done plenty of that. I've done plenty of failing and embarrassing myself. I know how to fail, I think, pretty well. Thank you. I failed. I took my improv acting class from Matt Smith. Thank you. I failed. I'm pretty good at handling my failure. I mean, that's the only reason why I have the guts to do the stand-up comedy class because I'm not afraid to fail to make people laugh, but which is funny. Of course, I want to make people laugh with my comedy, but I got up in front of my class and I was so nervous about sucking. Although I do think I'm funny. I think I'm funny, but what I think I'm really weird. Like my fear about failing at being a comedian is, or just, doing a little 5 minute. I mean, I'm not expecting myself to win a contest or get like an hour long special on national TV or anything, although I'm open to that. Someday, if I'm good enough, if I could get myself an hour long special on national TV, I'll do it. But I'm open to that. But if I'm good enough, and if not, hey, then it won't happen if I'm not good enough. But what I was gonna say was, my fear is that I'm too weird. I think some people who are afraid to do comedy, maybe they think it's because they're boring and they're not funny enough, and they're just a regular person. What do I have to share that's funny and unique, Because all of the best comedians, I think, are the unique people, the weird, eccentric, unusual people who point things out that other people don't realize. And people who like my art say that about my art, that they see my art and my photography in particular, and they see things that they never noticed before, like a mud puddle is more interesting than they realized after they see a photo that I took of a mud puddle. For instance, like that, or like just a bunch of rocks on the ground could look pretty interesting if you take a good photo of it. So the same thing with comedy. Comedy is the same. Like, I think what I'm good at with comedy is I have like weird ideas but my fear is that I'm so weird that nobody will understand what I'm trying to say, that people will misinterpret me or not even understand what I'm saying. And so the way to do the comedy is to kind of explain myself in a nutshell, my eccentric weirdness, and somehow poke fun at the weirdness and see if I can get people to understand the points I'm trying to make that are absurd and funny. But you can't really force people to laugh. So it's kind of like, okay. So this video is not about that. This video is just me rambling on about I'm taking a stand-up comedy class, I'm in a play, I'm a pet sitter, I'm a dog walker, I'm a standardized patient, I'm a medical model, and I'm an art model. I do costume, portrait, figure, sculpture, photography, all of it. I'm gonna meet with somebody about um, music videos that we might make of the goddess Kring flower music. I think that's all I want to say today. Yeah, I've been talking for quite a while. Okay, so thanks for listening. So this is Shannon Kringen just checking in with you guys, hoping that I can heal. And anybody who writes thoughtful comments, thank you. And anybody who says if you're trying to discourage me with your critical spray, don't spray water on our candle if you think it's. I wrote a song about that called A Monkey Wrench because I come from parents who criticize me. So I've had enough criticism. I'm open to constructive criticism if it's actually helpful, but if it's disrespectful and condescending, then that's just kindling for my fire. I will burn I will burn the kindling of your any disrespectful, condescending comments are just like poop that I flush down the toilet. Or perhaps it's more positive to say it's compost that I put in my garden so that I can grow something beautiful from the stinky manure. So I like to say outsmart the gaslighters and strong enough to withstand the manure mentality, strong enough to withstand the manure mentality. And that's one thing I'm going to do in my comedy is I'm going to mention my poetic phrases like spread the kring, which sounds X-rated. Spread the kring. butter the wing. And then there's another thing I say called Tom Petty widens my jetty. And Tom Petty's right here. It's Tom Petty. Sounds X-rated, but actually what I really mean by that, other than I do have a huge crush on that guy, may he rest in peace, beautiful man that he was, heart and soul and mind, and I love the way he looked, I love the way he sounded. But Tom Petty widens my jetty is like he's my service musician, just like you have a service animal that helps you get through hard times. Well, Tom Petty's music, his music, I never met the real man. Okay, I don't have any fantasy about, I don't have any grandiose delusional ideas that I actually met the real Thomas Earl Petty. I never met the person. But the music, I have a relationship with the music of Tom Petty. In fact, I think I want to get a Barbie doll and turn it into a Tom Petty doll and like put like a top hat and a guitar and put that like on my the dash of my Opal Moonstone art car. So that there it is. So I am extremely grateful for how busy I am, but I am acknowledging that I am exhausted and I need to take better care of myself and learn to have better boundaries with my work life and my personal life, learn to have better boundaries with each of my parents. I know that I love them, but I also feel angry and guilty and ashamed about the family problems. And I feel really frustrated, like I'm never going to learn to grow up from all of this. And I'm really self-aware, but I'm still not very grown up on some of this stuff. And it's really kind of embarrassing and it makes me angry. But if I beat myself up, it just gets worse. So it's good that I'm self-aware. And I want to try to do some stand-up comedy keep it light about my checkerboard childhood and my free-range human being self and the unusual things I do for a living and how that is easier for me than doing a normal job. Like people think that I choose to do this alternative lifestyle freelance job. It's like, no, I fell into it. I don't know how to do one full-time normal job. All of the normal full-time jobs I've had have been horrible, minimum wage. I've never had a really good job with benefits. No, I don't know how to do that. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to dress up and do some corporate thing. And I don't know how to do that. I could play an actress doing that, but I don't actually want to do that. I auditioned and got into Cornish and their acting conservatory, and then I got scared and dropped out. And that was like 20 years ago. And I still feel bad about that. But oh well, I used to watch you say Brendan Frazier? I think everyone says Brendan Fraser, but I think you pronounce his name Brendan Fraser. Brendan Fraser. I used to watch him act at Cornish College of the Arts here in Seattle in the early 90s, I think it was. And he really stood out. He was amazingly charismatic and had great potential. And as we all know, he has a career. But um, I'm just blurting that out and I'm just want to continue trying stand-up comedy. Eventually at the end of this stand-up comedy class I'm taking, we're going to have 5 minutes of comedy, me and the four other people in the class. We're all going to have a good hopefully a good tight 5 minutes worth of comedy and try it out on each other and try it out at the open mics around town. And I'm in a play at the end of this month. I'm in a bunch of art car events. I'm in a bunch of piece of my art got accepted into the Folklife Festival. Um, so all these really positive, I'm doing a lot of positive things, but I really need to take better care of myself and I need to learn how to have healthier boundaries with my parents, with each of my parents separately, with my mom and my dad. I would like to have healthier boundaries. I would like to try to forgive myself for being born and forgive them for not being perfect parents, because no, I know no parents are perfect no matter what. Even people that come from amazing families that are extremely functional, they still have their family dark side or their family trauma, or, something always happens in the family that is traumatic or upsetting, and everybody has to recover from it or whatever. I know that that's true. And people who hated my public access TV show used to say, shame on you for airing your dirty laundry. Nobody wants to hear that. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe my boundaries were inappropriate in some ways. That's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is maybe as humans, we need to learn to be more brave and more self-aware and more honest and have more depth. Maybe that's because I'm a Scorpio. Maybe is that why I like to talk about these deep things that make some people uncomfortable? Like one of my friends goes, "Don't overthink it." It's like Okay, well, don't underthink it. You could say, yeah, maybe I think too much about these complicated things that are too deep for people to deal with, or you can't really, like, I'm always trying to figure it out. Maybe I will never figure it out, but I like to just be aware of these things. And maybe I could, that's why I'm doing the comedy class too, is to find a way to lighten up and drop the baggage and try to make fun of and make light of the challenges and the absurdity and the pain of life. Like life is kind of tragedy, and the flip side of tragedy is comedy. It's kind of like if you look at things in a certain way that you could flip them around and turn them into comedy, and then you could take something funny and flip it around and turn it into a tragedy. I mean, that's really kind of true. It's like two sides to one coin. Life really is amazing and painful at the same time. Life is wonderful and full of pleasure, and it's also disturbing and full of pain. And everything's temporary in this earth, and it's changing every 5 seconds. And it's like a little overwhelming that everything changes every 5 seconds. So that's my monologue for today. This is Shannon Nicole Kringen. I'm an left-handed Scorpio Earth monkey, only child, born in San Diego in 1968, and now I live in Seattle. And I love to be interviewed, and I want to make a documentary film about my life. If I was a billionaire, trillionaire, zillionaire, I would probably buy a building and turn it into a Shannon Kringen art museum. And I would just maybe a Shannon Kringen art library where I would just share my work for free and maybe have art classes and workshops. Because if I was really wealthy, I wouldn't need to make money. So I'd still think I would like to share my art though. So I think if I was extremely wealthy, I would like to buy a building and turn it into an art school or turn it into a place where people could come and do workshops, or maybe I could teach workshops, and I would be sharing my art with people, and I would be sharing my photography, painting, music, poetry, improv, monologues, maybe encourage people to express themselves in whatever way they want, teach people how to do creative self-portraits if they want. I could teach people how to paint shoes. I could teach people how about the design principles of non-representational abstract art and how there's rules in making a good composition, just like there is in photography and realistic painting. Um, Maybe I would have, yeah, like some kind of art museum or art school or Kring art gallery museum where everything, maybe I could have a Kring art gallery where you check out art for free and then you just give it back. You just borrow it and put it on your wall like a library book, and then you then you return it a few weeks later. That'd be kind of cool to have like a Shannon Kringen art library or something. I've written a poetry book, Kringonian Pizzazz. I'm working on my second poetry book. I'm in a play. I'm in a bunch of art shows. I do a bunch of art. I'm doing a lot. What I need to learn to do is rest. What I need to learn to do is take better care of myself and rest and spend more time in nature and learn to have better boundaries in my personal life and my professional life. Maybe I shouldn't say yes to every single thing that I say yes to because then I abandon myself. Like self-abandonment got me stranded again, polluted and uprooted, meaning I'm uprooted. I'm not feeling stable. I'm losing sense of myself because I'm saying yes to everybody else. I'm abandoning myself and trying to please other people, hoping to get my needs met when really I have to take better care of myself instead of bending over backwards for everybody else. So that's one of my challenges right there. And learning how to speak up for myself because there's people who sometimes ask me things and then I would rather do it myself and then I just pretend because they want to there's more extroverted people that want to do the buddy system, buddy system, solidarity, buddy system all the time. And it's like sometimes I'd rather just go off by myself and do my own thing and share it with the group later. I don't always want to pair up with people and have a buddy system with everybody else. So yeah, I kind of like doing my own thing. So, and then sharing it. That's true. That's the kind of introverted extrovert that I am, is I want to be on stage and I like to perform, but at the same time, I like to kind of do things by myself. And then I like to share it with the group. So I like to go on stage or publish my stuff. But when I create it, a lot of times I create by myself and then I share it with other people. And then that's how I interact with the group. And like when I art model, I'm kind of in my own world as the model, but I'm with the group. I'm serving the group by being the model, and they're all drawing me. And yet I'm kind of just sitting there in my own little world daydreaming, and then they're drawing me. It's kind of an interesting way to be part of a group. So, as opposed to everybody in the group doing the same thing. I'm the only model and they're everyone else is drawing, but I'm the only model. I think I like being a group in that way, in a group in that way. I like being on stage performing with other performers, and then the audience is the group. The one group is the audience and one group is the performers on stage, and we're all in this together, but the audience and the performer are doing two different things. There's the yin and the yang of that. Just trying to figure this out. Okay. I'm never going to figure it out, whatever that means. Okay. Thanks for listening. This is Shannon Kringen, Goddess Kring. Here's my eyeballs. Hello, everybody. I'm a real person. Who are you? So thanks for listening. See you next time. I need some rest and I'm going to have dinner with a friend. I'm going to try to enjoy dinner with a friend because I have a really, really, really hectic schedule for the next several days. So I got to memorize my lines for the play. I need to drop off, I need to pick up art from one show, drop off art from another show. I need to go get the artesian well water that I get. I have a bunch of work that I do with medical students, work that I do with art students, work that I do with dogs and cats. It's like, and I volunteer somewhere out in nature. I mean, oh my God, I'm so busy. I need to figure out how to rest, how to balance my boundaries with my work life and my personal life with my family. Hope I can figure this out. But one day at a time, I need to forgive myself, pat myself on the back and give myself credit for all the brave things that I've done and handling it pretty well, but realize that I'm kind of overdoing things to the point where I'm really exhausted and I need to take better care of myself, get more rest. Thanks for listening. Okay, bye for now. Bye. Thanks for being here.